gentleman who put this all together, English teacher extraordinaire, Mr. Dennis Sanchez. Dennis,
thank you very much. Eastside Spirit and Pride is about, first of all, it was about creating pride at East LA College to show other people that East LA College students are just as good as any student anywhere. But now I see the vision growing bigger and bigger. We want to create scholarships. I don't know if you know this, but the community college has gone up to $46 a unit. When I went to ELAC, it was free. And I had to debate whether I wanted to go there or keep my money. And so I think I probably would have spent that money on my car instead of going to ELAC. And all the schools that I attend, ELAC is by far the best. Because it's the only place where teachers, counselors, presidents reach out to the students instead of the other way around. And now I am blessed to have the opportunity to teach at Homeboy Industry, the Bridge to College class that I teach every Monday. I took a couple of these students of mine from Homeboy and I put them on the board of directors for Eastside Spirit and Pride. I thought as a favor to them, well, you know what it turned out, it was a favor to us, because these people are the most loyal, the most dedicated students anywhere. And they're always here, and you're going to get the chance to meet a couple of them today. And so I hope you hold on for that. But we have a special speaker today who has influenced me greatly. Not so much when I was around him, but when I thought about it later, you know, when I thought about the way he treated each individual. One time, the first time you came to ELAC to speak, Father Greg, we were walking around and you were talking about a student, a person with such great respect. And I thought ELAC hired another vice president. That's how much respect you had for this person. And I thought, okay, I got to play along with this, find out who this vice president is, and try to act impressed. And it turned out you were talking about a student that was in my English 21 class. And I thought about that later, and I realized, you know, that's the way all people should be treated. And by treating my students like that, I've got not only students, but I got friends here. And the Homeboy kids, they're the best. You know, you hear these stereotypes about them, and people, Homeboy, you better bring your gun if you're working over there. But working with these kids has been one of the greatest endeavors of my life. These kids are loyal. They're incredible, incredible human beings. And I'm not saying this just to blow smoke. This is true. And what they have at Homeboy Industry is it's an amazing thing. You need to go over there if you haven't been there. It's an incredible activity. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special speaker today, Father Gregory Boyle.
Thank you. It's not every day I get music that accompanies me up here. Thank you very much. I'll be brief. I know that I'm the only thing standing between you and your lunch, so I'm really grateful that my friend Ernest is here. He's the only person who's ever hired me to work in although I don't think I got any pay now that I think about it, but I was privileged to teach at ELAC a number of years ago, and that was a great experience in my life. You know, I love East LA College. Dennis knows this. I love Dennis. I'm so appreciative for his presence at Homeboy. You know, when I taught there years ago, when I had whatever I had, 60 students or something, and I looked at them and I thought, wow, you know, these are folks who are just the most dedicated, hardworking folks who would work all day and then have to sit through my 3-hour class, you know, and you know, folks with kind of a checkered past in terms of their own education. You know, you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can't judge a book by its first chapter either. And these are people who moved on to their second and third chapters. People like Natalie and Isidro and the Gustavos up here, and all the folks at Homeboy who are benefiting greatly from this presence of ELAC at Homeboy in the presence of Dennis. So I was thinking today that in the end, your education at ELAC is not about you, it's about the world. In the end, folks aren't able to change the world unless they're educated, it seems to me. Only educated folks can have a vision of what the world ought to look like. The prophet Habakkuk writes, the vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint. And if it delays, wait for it. But you don't want to wait con los brazos cruzados, you want to make something happen. And so the task of education, or the goal really, is to be able to shape it, to imagine a community of kinship such that God, in fact, might recognize it. That's the goal, is to imagine something different, to imagine a circle of compassion, and then imagine nobody standing outside that circle. So only the educated, it seems to me, can set about to dismantle the barriers that include, so that the circle widens and more people are brought in. And that's sort of the whole point. Kinship, where there is no us and them, there's just us. So it's been the privilege of my life for a quarter of a century to work with gang members, and they've taught me everything of value, and I couldn't be more grateful. But the last couple of years, they've taught me how to text, and I am so grateful to them. I find it sure beats the heck out of actually talking to people. And so I'm pretty good at it, LOL and OMG and BTW, and homies have taught me a new one, OHN, which apparently stands for, oh hell no. And I've been using that one quite a bit lately. And so there I am with two homies, Manuel and Poncho, older vatos who work for me at Homeboy and do a variety of things. I have 400 employees. And they're going to help me give a talk at a high school. And so we meet at 9 and we drive to Palm Desert, where this high school is, about a 2-hour drive. And Manuel's in the front seat, and he gets an incoming text, and he reads it, and he sort of chuckles to himself. And I say, well, what is it? He goes, oh, it's dumb. It's from Snoopy back at the office. And well, Snoopy, I had just seen him. He had just given me a big abrazote before as the day began. Snoopy and Manuel work together in the clock-in room, where they clock in hundreds and hundreds of our workers. It's a hard job. I said, well, what's he say? And he goes, oh, hang on a second, that's dumb. Hey, dog, it's me, Snoops. Yeah, they got my ass locked up in county jail. They're charging me with being the ugliest vato in America. You have to come down right now, show them they got the wrong guy. But we died laughing, you know, and then I realized that Manuel and Poncho are enemies. They're from rival gangs. They used to shoot bullets at each other. Now they shoot text messages. And there's a word for that, and the word is kinship. How can we obliterate once and for all the illusion that we're separate? Mother Teresa, I think, diagnosed the world's ills correctly when she suggested that the problem in the world is that we've just forgotten that we belong to each other. So how do we stand against forgetting that? How do we seek a compassion that can stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it? And how do we reach out and educate ourselves so the world looks more dedicated to mutuality? The great Cesar Chavez, who I was privileged to know and call a friend, once was talking to a reporter, and the reporter commented to him, wow, these farm workers, they sure love you. And Cesar just shrugged and smiled, and he said, the feeling's mutual. That's where we want to get. This is the whole point of education. It's not about a concern for the bottom line. It's about being concerned for those who line the bottom and find a sense of mutuality in that. And those who've been to Homeboy know that you know, it's filled with the folks who are trying to redirect their lives, and we have 7 businesses, including Homegirl Cafe, where women with records, young ladies from rival gangs, waitresses with attitude will gladly take your order. And Ernie's been there, he's a loyal fan. Last year we had Oscar-winning actress Diane Keaton show up for lunch. She won an Academy Award for Annie Hall, and she's in the Godfather movies, big movie star. She shows up, and her waitress is Glenda, homegirl, who's been there, done that, been to prison, tattooed, a felon, a parolee. She doesn't know who Diane Keaton is, you know, so she takes her order and she says, Diane Keaton asks Glenda, what do you recommend? And Glenda rattles off the 3 platillos that she particularly likes, and then she goes, well, I'll have that second one, that one sounds good. And it's at that moment that something dawns on Glenda. She looks at Diane Keaton, she says, wait a minute, I feel like I know you from somewhere, like maybe we've met. And Diane Keaton sort of decides to deflect it humbly. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I suppose I have one of those faces that people think that they've seen before. And then Glenda goes, no, now I know. We were locked up together. Honestly, God, that just took my breath away when I heard it. And I don't believe we've had any more Diane Keaton sightings, now that I think of it. But suddenly kinship so quickly, this is the whole point. This is the end goal, it seems to me, of an education in itself. Or as Jesus would say, that you may be one. That's the whole point, that we somehow work against divisions and separations and we find ourselves connected to each other. It's mutual. One last story and I'll let you eat. You know, homies always, people always ask me about enemies working side by side with each other, and it's difficult at first, for sure. A homie will come in and say, I'm ready, and I'll say, well, all right, I have an opening in the bakery, at Homeboy Bakery, but you know, you have to work with X, Y, and Z, and I rattle off the names of rivals, enemies. And they always say the same thing. They always think for a long-ass time, and then they go, okay, I'll work with them, but I'm not going to talk to them. You know, which used to bother me in the old days until you discover, of course, that it's impossible for human beings to demonize people they know. Human beings can't sustain that. So I had a homie everybody called Youngster, that was his gang name, and a little chaparrito, and I thought he was ready. So I bring him over to Homeboy Silkscreen, and I hope they printed these shirts that you're wearing. No? Well, maybe they didn't, sorry. I thought maybe I'd put in an advertisement there. Reasonably priced, high quality work we UPS to ELAC. Anyway, so I thought he was ready to work, so I bring him into our huge factory, which is our oldest business, been around for about 19 years. And I walk him into there, and I'm introducing him to his 30 coworkers. And I watch Youngster as he shakes hands of each of the homies there, looks them in the eyes, even enemies. I think, wow, this is great. Until finally he gets around to the very last guy, a guy who seems to be wanting to avoid this encounter altogether, a kid everybody called Puppet. And when Puppet and Youngster are in each other's vicinity, they mumble something, they stare at their shoes, they don't shake hands. Well, I know they're enemies because I know what gangs they hail from, but he just finished shaking hands with other enemies. I discovered later that this is a hatred that was really personal, very deep, beyond which neither of them thought they could get past. So I sensed that much at the moment, and I look at them, I say, you know, if you guys can't hang working together, that's fine. Just let me know. I got a bunch of people who want this jale. And they're calladitos, they don't say a word. Well, 6 months later, a Puppet is going to a store some distance from his home, a little corner store. He buys something. On his way home, he decides to take a shortcut, so he dodges into an alley. And suddenly, quite unexpectedly, he finds himself surrounded by 10 enemies. 10 against 1. And they beat him badly, and he falls to the ground. And while he's lying there, they will not stop kicking his head until he's lifeless. Somebody finds his body and takes him to White Memorial Hospital, where he's declared effectively brain dead. But it's the policy there at White Memorial Hospital to keep you connected to machines for 48 hours. So you can get 2 days of a flat read, and then the doctor signed the certificate making it official. This allowed family and friends to gather. I was at St. Louis University giving a talk. I flew home. I've seen a lot of horrible things in my life, but nothing to compare to the sight of this young man with his head swollen many times its size. It was horrifying. You could barely train your eyes on him. So at the end of the 48-hour period, I gave him a blessing prayer. I gave him La Unción de los Enfermos. We disconnected, and a week later I buried him. But in the first 24 hours after he was shot and laying in the hospital, I'm alone in my office. It's 8:30 at night, and the phone rings, and it's Youngster, Puppet's co-worker from the silkscreen factory. And he said, "Hey, that's messed up about what happened to Puppet." I said, "Yeah, it was." And then with a certain kind of eagerness even, he said, "Is there anything I can do? Can I give him my blood?" And we both fall silent under the weight of it, until finally he breaks the silence, choking back his tears, and he says with great deliberation, "He was not my enemy. He was my friend. We worked together." Now, can I say that always happens at Homeboy Industries? Yeah. Any exceptions? No. And it shouldn't surprise us that God's own dream come true for us, that we be one, just happens to be our own deepest longing for ourselves. It turns out it's mutual. What Martin Luther King used to say about church could well be said about ELAC. It's not the place you go to or come to, it's the place you go from. And you go from that place to create a world that looks differently than it currently looks. A community of kinship. For the vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint. And if it delays, we wait for it. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Ernie. Thank all of you.